This is the car that the motor's going into. It's a 68 XR7 Cougar. Been sitting since about 2003. It's not in too bad a shape. Doesn't have a lot of rust or anything like that. The interior is pretty much all there. Of course, you got some sun damage on the back of the seats. Headliner's in pretty good shape. The dash pad is toast, but overall, not a bad car. A little bit of previous body work, which I'm thinking maybe it was wrecked because you've got some paint and some body filler back here that's coming up, and then this quarter panel also has some body filler. The whole car has been repainted, it appears, but I believe it's been repainted to the original color. Probably just repair of the damage from the accident. They may have just repainted the entire car. So, yeah, I mean, it's not a bad car. It's supposed to be pretty easy, just, go through it, get it running, but then we ran into all the issues with the engine. So we're going to get it all fixed up right and get this thing back on the road after sitting for about 19 years. Well, this thing's a little bit rougher than I thought. We've got 1, 2, and 3 spun rod bearings. All these other ones are tight. Piece of plastic, looks like a plastic gear in the oil pickup. And the heads look like they've seen better days. Someone not changing the oil in it. So we're gonna send this thing off to the machine shop. Hopefully they can just polish the crank, check the rods, and check the cylinder bores, make sure everything's good. Bore it over if needed, but it's gonna need a little bit of work. I'll show you a couple things I found. So first off, this timing chain is it's pretty shot. There's a lot of slack in there. It should not be that loose. Also, I pulled off one of the rod caps, and I pulled off this main bearing cap here. And they're not as bad as what I expected them to be. They're still not in that great a shape. There's a lot of dirt and grime and grease that I just put on there with my finger, but the crankshaft itself looks pretty good. There's no scores or anything I can catch my fingernail in, so I think just polishing the crank will clean it all up. And I found the culprit. So I knew that the oil pump drive shaft had snapped off. It should be about 1 inch longer here. And you can actually see the twist that is in this shaft. You can see it starts down here and starts to twist. That's a classic sign of this oil pump being locked up. So I wanted to check it, and sure enough, so that little bit of movement is just the shaft in the oil pump. But if I try and, can't really do it with one hand, but if I try and turn this, it is locked up solid. So don't know if this oil pump locked up back in 2003 when this car was parked, and that's why they parked it, or if it just seized up from sitting and over the years for what's that, almost 20 years now. If if it just seized up from sitting so long, and then the first time we tried to turn the motor over, it just snapped that shaft right off. So, and then once it did fire up, it ran for a couple minutes without any oil pressure until we figured out what was going on and shut it off right away. But I think at that point, the damage had already been done. My guess is it was done back in 2003. There's been no oil kind of in this motor for a while. So, but yeah, looking at it further though, I had first said it was just these 3 rods, but all of the rods, if you listen, I don't know if you can hear that, but all of these rods, they all have a lot of play in them. So I think this thing's just wore completely out. And the thrust on it, the crankshaft thrust is so much. I don't know if y'all can see that. Maybe you can hear it, but there's a lot of crankshaft thrust on it. So all the bearings in this whole motor is just really wore out and ready to be refreshed. All right, block's ready to go off to the machine shop. Got it all stripped out. I got the freeze plugs out. We've got the pistons in the box down here. And I've got the heads and the crankshaft over there we're going to take. We're not reusing that camshaft. We actually have a Comp Cams 268, I believe, hydraulic flat tappet cam. We've got the whole kit here. It comes with all the lifters. The valve springs. Let's see. We've got the valve springs, the lifters. We actually have a timing chain set here to replace the wore out one. We've got the spring retainers, valve stem seals, spring retainers, and of course the camshaft. So we'll have all that nice comp cam stuff in there, along with we've got some hooker long tube headers we're going to be putting on it. And it also has an Edelbrock carburetor, and then just going through the motor.